I was going to do a She-Hulk review today, but from the views it would appear no one's interested enough in She-Hulk Attorney at Law to even want to watch a review of it. So instead, Amazon's Rings of Power episode 3. Coming up later, it's that guy. I know that guy from Spartacus Blood and Sand. He played a gladiator in it, and I liked him in it. I imagine he's getting paid a lot more for this than he did for Spartacus. But if you have a choice between watching this or Spartacus Blood and Sand, I say go with Spartacus. I thought it was better, but beware, it does go heavy on the sex and violence.
You like movies about gladiators?
Yes I do. But before you ask, no, I've never been in a Turkish prison. I'm going to do things a little bit different this time. I'm fed up with jumping all over the place, so I'm not going to go chronological with the episode. Here is all of Galadriel's story from episode 3. Galadriel wakes up in the hold of the ship that found her. The ship design is interesting. The sails seem over-designed and inefficient, yet fantastical. They're taken to Numenor, an island in the ocean west of Middle-earth, and it's the captain's home. The scenery looks really good. Large stone heads and statues ornament the entrance to the harbour, and the cityscape kind of reminds me of the scenes of Braavos in Game of Thrones, probably intentionally. Or should I say, the island of Numenor. Those rolling R's again. The city is very ornate, but it doesn't quite look real somehow. The design is unusual, carefully melding different influences. They seem to have taken a lot of inspiration from the real world. The island seems to have notes of Greece or Italy, the Mediterranean as well as the Levant and Byzantium. Some of the statues and buildings are reminiscent of Gondor in the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films. Someone did quite a good job on this. I wish they'd written the script. I found the clothing design interesting too. The noble people seem to wear a lot of togas and robes. Many of the soldiers and sailors wear light armour, contrasting with the heavier plate and mail of the palace guards. I'm quite interested up to this point. Granted, Galadriel has constant resting bitch face, but still, I'm quite enjoying it. We're told that the humans of Numenor were friends and allies of the elves once, but broke contact a long time ago and now refuse to see the elves. Maybe this is the show taking a turn in a good direction. The captain takes them to see the Queen Regent, but she, according to her guards, is too busy for visitors right now. But they're let through when the guard sees Galadriel as an elf, and she's taken to the Queen. Galadriel brusquely asks for more help from the Queen whose ship just saved her life. She wants passage to Middle-earth. The Númenóreans are hesitant. They say they don't serve the elves. Galadriel says that they owe her and the elves for giving them the island. The Queen says they were given nothing. They paid the elves for the island with their blood and lives in the war. Galadriel says if blood is the price, she'll pay it, but she will depart. She's now threatening the Queen. Galadriel just walked in and she's already threatening the Queen of the people who just saved her life, for not giving in to her demands that they immediately serve her. I'm not enjoying it now. A few minutes with this Galadriel has ruined the good feelings I was having. It's about to turn to bloodshed, when Halbrand intervenes and suggests that him and Galadriel stay a few days while the Queen considers their situation. Galadriel didn't explain to the Queen why she needed to get to the Southland so quickly. That may have helped convince the Queen if she'd have told her of the imminent danger. She didn't even ask why the Númenóreans had turned on the elves. Maybe it was because the elves acted like Galadriel just did. On the whole, Galadriel is insufferable. The captain that saved Galadriel's life is tasked by the Queen with keeping her out of trouble. Galadriel runs from the men guarding her and down to the harbour, as she's planning on stealing a ship. They saved her life, and she's planning on stealing from them. Galadriel is insufferable. The captain catches her on the wharf and says the boat she's planning on stealing will barely get her out of the harbour. She says the Queen and I have something in common. We both wish you'd never brought me here. She's so ungrateful. This man saved her life less than a day ago, and made trouble for himself doing it. I agree with her. I wish he hadn't saved her as well and taken her to Numenor. He should have left her in the water with the giant sea snake. She's determined to steal the boat. He says he'll have to call the guards, and she threatens him with a knife. The man who saved her life, and she's threatening to stab him. Galadriel says to him, "Who is this mortal who speaks to me as if he has the slightest idea of who I am?" She's so arrogant. She treats everyone like servants, up to and including the Queen of Numenor, the Elven King, and the man who just saved her life. She says where she goes is none of his concern. She'd prefer anywhere to where she is now, where she's hated. Maybe she wouldn't be hated if she didn't act like such an awful watery bint. The captain, despite this, takes her to the west of the island that's more elf-friendly. They even have an elven library. Jesus, she shouldn't smile. It will spook the horse. Look at that poor horse's face. And shockingly, this actress is 33 years old. The actress playing young Galadriel is older than Cate Blanchett was in The Fellowship of the Ring. In the library, they search for the symbol of Sauron in the archives. And are you shitting me? Galadriel worked it out. Elven scholars have been looking at that mark for centuries, and not one thought to turn it sideways. Galadriel. She's a better fighter than all of the elf warriors, and a better scholar than all of their best scholars. She worked out in minutes what they'd failed to do in 1,000 years. Galadriel is insufferable. And why exactly did Sauron leave that mark on her brother's body? In the story, Sauron is supposedly trying to stay hidden. Why did he carve a map to his new hideout into an enemy soldier and leave it for his enemies to find? Galadriel also finds out in the library that Halbrand is the king of the Southern Realms. There are signs of darkness in Halbrand in this episode. He's forced into a fight and he becomes very vicious. He also rarely seems to like smithing, so it may be time to stop calling him Halbrand and start calling him probably Sauron. The captain that rescued Galadriel has a son, called Isildur. And here's the problem with prequels again. I think I already know quite a lot of his story, and the story of his father, assuming it's the same Isildur.
Blind luck Isildur's not joining him.
Me?
Your mind was in the bleeding clouds again all day. What is it?
Just eager to get out there.
And that acting is god-awful. Later on, the Númenórean queen alludes to a prophecy involving the arrival of an elf. It seems Galadriel has set events in motion with her arrival. Over with the Harfoots, they're getting ready to migrate, and Nori's father still has a bad foot and can't pull the wagon. It turns out when Harfoots move, if someone can't keep up with them, they leave them to die. If one of their own is sick, it appears nobody helps them. One guy they memorialised during the episode just got stuck in snow and they left him to die. And they also don't help outsiders, like probably Gandalf, who really needed help. So much for hearts as big as their feet. I'm completely sick of the Harfoots already. There's barely a single likeable character in this entire show. In the Southlands, Arondir the Plank has been captured by orcs. Who would have thought that crawling into an orc-infested hole armed with a bow would be a bad idea? For some reason he's still alive. This seems a departure from the orcs in Lord of the Rings. They seem to be capturing people as slave labour now. I don't know why the orcs need slaves. It just seems like an unnecessary risk. Normally the orcs would do all the labour and just eat all the people they capture. Also, why are these orcs highly susceptible to sunlight? And if they are burned by light, why are there tunnels right on the surface? Why don't they just work at night? The orcs keep on mentioning their boss, someone named Adar. How have they stayed hidden for hundreds of years? They leave maps to their secret hideout everywhere and tell strangers openly who their boss is. All of the other elves from Plank's command post also seem to have been captured. Why did the orcs capture them? Did the orcs know the elves were leaving? The other elves will notice when their missing men don't turn up, and they'll come and investigate. If the orcs had just let them go, the orcs could have stayed hidden. This writing is so thoughtless. Arondir refuses to cut down a tree for the orcs. Maybe he sees it as kin, as he too is entirely wooden. We're back with Plank. The leader of the elves decides to mouth off to one of the orcs, so the orcs kill one of them. And that's not how a cutthroat works. The elf barely even bleeds, and that's what kills a person with a cut artery. Massive blood loss. Maybe elven biology is different. Maybe it's magic. The guy playing Arondir barely ever shows any emotion, even when the role would rarely call for it. Is this all down to the actor? I can't think so. Has he been told to do this? If the director wanted something different, surely I have to imagine he could have got it out of this actor. There's a lacklustre fight with far too much bullet time, and all the elves die apart from Plank. At the end, Adar appears. So, what's the TLDR? The episode showed some real promise, with great scenery and intriguing places, then fouled itself with bad writing again.